Hi YouTube, Tim here. I know that I had some requests to make a version of Sting, presumably modeled after the Peter Jackson version in the movies, and I wanted to get some work on that done. So right here I have a scrap, which, if you'll notice, was the angled cut from the rear piece. This was the opposite piece from the blade that we made for the hand axe a few weeks ago. So the blade is 16 inches long to the very point, or what will be the blade, and 15 inches, call it 14 and a half inches from the back point. That's almost perfect. 15 inches is what the prop sword should be in terms of overall length. We'll have a handle, but we'll have that done out of 3/4 inch pipe, and then if we have some excess pipe of another kind, we'll form a little pommel cap at the other end before we decorate it. So it's going to resemble a large knife, or actually the Roman gladius that I made, except it will have a cross guard, and I'll try and make it look pretty much like in the movie. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and heat this up and flatten it completely out, putting the projecting side, the angle, right in the center. Jason had commented in our hangout on Google Plus that one of the problems he had been having is if you don't completely cool the other limb of a bow that you're making, when you heat up the second limb, it's not uncommon for the heat to warp the first limb, to puff it up a little bit. And a thought that I had was that if you aim straight down, or even at an angle inward, especially then, there's a lot of heat coming over here. If you aim this way, very little. Something as small as that might make a difference. I'm not certain that has anything to do with the problem he's having or he had described. You know, he said he just adjusted for it by allowing it to cool thoroughly between from one limb to the other, and I'm sure that'll work just fine. But I just wonder if that wouldn't take care of the problem, just a slight difference in angle, because I can stay here quite comfortably. However, like this, and yow, it wants to burn you pretty darn fast. Just a thought. Alright. So I know somebody else had requested that I make a version of Andúril, the sword of Aragorn, the restored sword. I can definitely do that, but unfortunately, it's going to be a few weeks. I'm going to be unavailable to make stuff for just a little bit. But I promise there will be lots of interesting stuff coming in the next 2 weeks. That just won't be one of them. But it is on my radar, and I am planning to do it. So stay tuned if you like stuff like this. To start with, we're going to completely flatten the blade. We want it to be almost as flat as it can be. So to that end, I'm going to put it on the floor and I'm going to stand on it with the board, the 2x4 here. Keep rubbing my fingers because I'm getting little bits of hot glue on me. Little bits of hot glue had gotten on here and now we're melting and now we're coming off on me. Okay, I think that's pretty darn hot. So now, let's take this, and I'll tell you what, I'll try and do it up here so I don't have to move the camera around. That's always a little bit more convenient. Let's set it right there in the middle with the pointy end towards the end. I'll set it this way so you can see it a little better. Pointy end there. Correct any minor curvature that you can right now. Stick the 2x4 on top and press. It helps since I can reach around the side just a little bit, just enough to grab the edge of the Carte Metro shelf here, and then I can compress it. It also just helps if you put your weight on it. Although in my case I don't weigh all that much, so it doesn't help as much as you'd expect. Nevertheless, this is the whole basic idea. And then what we're going to do is we're going to selectively heat different areas of the sword to alter the taper of it. It'll help a little bit, and then what remaining work remains to be done, we will just do with the saw and the file. We're going to make this look pretty cool. I am confident of that. So something else, flip it, try the other side, and move this to another area of the wood to help it cool faster. That will help a little bit. Whoops. I highly suggest just getting 2 boards and using a clamp. If you do it between them, it's more comfortable, it's not so difficult, and you can just walk away and do something else. So this isn't the best way to do it, but it's a way to do it. Okay, I'm just going to run it under the cool now. It's pretty evenly, under the cool water, it's pretty evenly flattened throughout. Alright, so just looking at that, what do you guys think? Could that be a Hobbit sword? I think we're getting somewhere. So now I'm going to go do a little bit of planning. I'm going to decide exactly what the next step will be, and that'll be the next part in the video. So keep on watching. Alright, here we go. This is what I've done to the sting blade. I just went ahead and drew out a pattern on it, and I'm going to go outside now and I'm just going to saw it out. So when you see it next, it'll be a blank cut out roughly to that shape. Alright, here we are again. Here's the blade. The blank of the blade that's been cut out from the pipe. It was flattened, I marked the sides, and this is what I did. See how this is missing this portion and this projected? That was the taper, the original angle that we'd cut. So that's fine. When we're done, what we can do is flatten it a little bit more and then just fill it in with epoxy or something along those lines. And the same goes for the sides here. We're eventually going to flatten the blade a little bit more, hopefully, and it'll turn out a little nicer. But for now, our objective is to insert this, which is going to be the grip. We're going to insert it to about here in the sword. So I just wanted to show you as well. Hear that? Those are pieces of PVC rattling around on the inside. This is originally the exact same size because I was making a little sting type sword for my daughter. This one was made out of the light gauge PVC, not the Schedule 40, but whatever, ANSI something or other, that it's just inadequate for making bows, but great for making light little swords. So I went ahead and coated it with about 8 layers of duct tape, and it's extremely, I mean, it'll still hurt you, but that really gives it a lot of good padding. And even though you can tell it's broken and damaged, it still has enough integrity that it's just gonna, I mean, you can tell it's broken there. It still works just fine. So if you're planning on using these things for actual play, like this is pretty rough play it's been through, sword fighting. But it works just fine because of the tape. That really helps a lot. So let's get the heat gun and insert the grip. I want to simultaneously heat this piece because I want it to smush. I'm eventually going to flatten the handle to make a better cross section. Another tip, if you don't want other areas to get heated up by it so much, take a piece of tin foil and put it on top. That'll reflect away a lot of the heat. One alternate idea that I had that I haven't been able to implement yet is to have a bucket or a tank of water with just the part that you want to expand sticking out. That'll keep everything else nice and cool and insulated and allow exactly what you want to heat. Let me get my glove on and let's give that a try. There we go. That's it. It's as simple as that. One is sticking out just to where the blade begins. Now this is a great opportunity. Spin the blade as you're letting it cool, and then if you notice it off center, just go ahead and give it a little twist, twist, twist in that direction so that it ends up perfectly straight, or as close to straight as you want. When I'm done, I should be able to pull this out. We can then set it later and go ahead and hot glue it in. That'll actually make it easier to go ahead and file the end down and shape it separately. But I want to leave this all just like it is for the moment. And yeah, that feels pretty cool. Gonna run it under the cold water. Very cool. So there we go. You can see Sting coming together. The next thing we're going to do is make the cross guard. I'm also going to remove this piece, file this down a little bit, file that down a little bit. I'm sorry, file this, make the cross guard, and then we'll start to assemble it and put it all making together. The cross guard. The cross guard is just a piece about 5 inches long. Yep. 5 inches long. And I just cut it off from this piece over here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten it, or heat it in the center, and then snip out two diamond-shaped pieces. Sometimes if it gets uncomfortable to hold it, I'll rock it like that with the using this back and forth, back and forth. You can see that what I'm doing, I'm just cutting out actually it's a hexagon. I didn't intentionally do that, but that suits. So once you cut your shape out like that, there you go. This is going to be what helps it slip over the end. We're going to do the same thing on the top. So now continue heating it if it cooled off too much. Only now you don't have to focus on the other side. It's just starting to burn there. But that's okay, especially since we're just cutting it out. You don't want to go all the way through. You want to leave something in the middle for it to attach to. You could go and make each side of the cross guard separately, but I don't want to. If you do, go right ahead and do it. Nothing will stop you from doing that, and your result may be even better than mine. feel free to experiment. I mean, come on, it's not like you're wasting a lot of money if you screw a piece of PVC, especially 5 inches long up. There we go. Great. So now that's what we have. That'll go right over the end. I'm actually going to flatten both sides like so. This is the top, this is the bottom. I'm going to flatten it side to side like that. Then I'm going to take it outside and I'm going to sand all this down, make it nice and smooth. And you'll see how nice that looks. Okay, let's go ahead, like I said, top, bottom, so I'm going to flatten it like that. And I like to look at it from the side just so I can tilt the end here to make sure that it's perfectly straight, or at least as straight as I want it. In this case, I want the top to be more straight than the bottom, so I'm going to bend it up and back just a little bit to center it and keep the bulge. Since it gets wider as it gets flatter, I want the bulge to be on the bottom part. I want it to be straight across the top from one side to the other. Maybe a slight upturn. Either way. At any rate, it's going to be a very nice blade. So now I'll move this, and I'll move this both on the cutting board and the board I'm using to cool it off a little bit quicker. Be surprised how much that helps. Okay, and let's run it under the water. Now we're doing the same thing to the other side. And this heats up really quickly because you're heating such a small area. Plus, when I'm going like this, some hot air is coming in from the inside as well as from heating it from the outside. But again, I'm going to keep the angle well away from the area I just heated because I don't want it to expand up on me again. That's all there is to it. Set that back, and let's flatten it again. Great. And again, just tilt the... Usually if you bend it like this, it'll want to curl downwards. At least that seems to be my experience. Maybe that's just because the cutting board tapers away more slowly than this. This is a sharper corner, so it wants to go away from the board I'm using. Either way, just look at it from the side, align it as it's cooling. It'll prevent you from having some headaches later on, having to heat it and reshape it. The less you do on these things, the better. Just it'll save you time, effort, energy. I mean, electricity for what it's worth. New area of wood, new area of the cutting board. Okay, now I'm going to go and cool it under the water again. Alright. That's what we have. You can see the taper's not perfect, but when I heat the center, we'll make sure this matches this side. That's what we want. All we're going to do now is take some marker, and we're just going to draw the pattern that we want out from it. Basically, we want to come out from the grip area and do something like that up to the end. I'll have to consult some notes to actually make sure that's accurate. Oh, look at that. Sharpie doesn't like water. Okay. I'm going to go consult some notes. Then I'm just going to draw the pattern that I need on here, and I'm going to go cut it out, round the corners, and etc., etc. I will then show you fitting the grip to the crossguard to the blade. Thanks for watching. I've done some shaping on the crossguard. What we're going to do is heat it just a touch at the top as we pinch the bottom and curve it upwards just slightly. But that'll come later. Right now, this is the side that goes up and in. So the overall size is pretty good, but we want to eventually pinch the bottom and scallop it, or we'll show you that part later. Right now, let's just heat it and flatten it a little bit with this 2x4. It'll give it a slightly more pleasant cross-section, nicer to hold, and also be a little bit more authentic. Alright, now in the movies, Sting is wider at the top than it is at the bottom. We're going to accomplish that effect with a 3/4 inch pipe with the handle by tapering it selectively, like this. We're going to leave it pretty darn close to round at the bottom, and we're going to taper it up towards the top. So it'll be wider at the top than it is at the bottom. We are going to have to reshape it and reattach it to there, but that's all just part of it. I'm changing plans as we're going along and so on and so forth. I hope you all can bear with me. I think the results are going to be well worth it. Well, eventually what we're going to do here is we're going to use my hand clamp and pinch shut this end part here. That's going to create a nice flat. Here's the result of our selective tapering. Nice and wide at the top, tapering to a finer end at the bottom, and we can go ahead if we really want to and file that away if you want to make it taper more sharply, but I think that's about right. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to heat the end, and tell you what, forget the clamp. I'm not going to go and look for it somewhere out in the garage. Better I just heat it like this, the last inch of it, and flatten it right like that. Nothing we haven't done before. Again, for smaller pieces like this, smaller and awkward pieces, both of those I prefer to just hold in the air as I do it. Okay, unless I'm mistaken, that should be sufficient. Taking the final inch, the terminal inch, and we're pinching the heck out of it. We do want this to be a clean, flattened piece because we're going to end up sawing a good bit of it off, and we want it to remain closed. You can always reheat it if you do and repinch it, but I'd like to get it all done in a one good go. So looking at it from the side, make sure it's straight. Looks good to me. Cool. This is actually pretty nifty. So when I'm done with this, all I'm going to do is take this outdoors, sand all the ends, and I will round the bottom. Since it has a square cross section, since it's been flattened, I'm just going to pretend this is the side. I'm going to cut from here to there and here to there to make a nice round bottom. That's fairly authentic. That'll look pretty darn good. So move it, move the board. Now you're using two separate pieces, so it'll cool quicker. And under the cool water. The grip, fat, thin, pinched at the bottom. Pretty cool. I'm going to go outside and finish it up, and then we can start putting stuff together. So here we are with all of the component parts ready to go and be put together. Then we can continue shaping, decorating, doing whatever else we'd like to. Right now we've got the crossguard, the blade, and the grip with pommel. It's nice and shaped now. That's just a little bit of hot glue there. Anyway. So we're going to have to figure out a way to get all of these things to go together. At the moment it seems like it could be a little challenging, but I'm sure we'll make do. The biggest challenge is how we're going to get this onto here. I think what I'm going to do is heat the end here, let it soften and round up, heat this again, and we'll make them once more just like we did before. But this time, after it cools, I'll pull this off, heat this, and insert this. Oh, that actually looks kind of cool. So you can already get an idea what it's going to look like. So let's get to work. Step 1. I'm heating just the tip. Because again, I like the fact that it's wide at the top, not at the bottom. But also remember, the top, probably 1.5 inches are going to be inserted into the other piece. It's a dagger. That's enough. So anything above my hand right here is probably going to be covered up. It's a perfect sword for a child or a hobbit if you've got one in the family. Here, I'll heat it this way so you can see. You'll notice I've also burned the edges. I'm burning these a little bit more. I'm being a lot less careful than I am with the bows because they matter a lot less. This part, the edges especially, aren't going to be load-bearing. They're just going to be inside the sword itself right there, not really doing very much of anything except joining the two together. And the glue is going to do the bundle of that work, the bulk of that. So once we heat up the first few inches here, that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and see if we can insert it again. Okay. There we go. See, that's how far I wanted it. Just to where it's starting to peek out there. So we have more than 1 inch between the two, joining them. Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches. Yeah, it's about 1.5 inches joining them. And look at it from the side if it's straight. The side. Look down it, make sure it's straight. Once you're pretty sure it's straight and you're comfortable, you can run it under some water. Also remember, if you want it to cool off, you've got to run water into it, which means you've got to run it down the handle here in this case. Alright. I think that's adequate. I actually poured water in the top here and sort of sprinkled out the little hole here in the corner. So there we go. Make sure it's not too hot. Yeah. This one really wants to rebound. It doesn't like, after I pull it out, it's almost impossible to stick back in. We might have to do it once more just to get it fixed properly. But for now, let's go ahead and heat this and get it on here. So now we're just heating the center. Let's see if that's sufficient. I think it will be. Okay, so taking that, just squeeze it in, squeeze it over, and voila! Make sure you can grab it comfortably. If it's meant for your kid, maybe make it a little bit lower. And just gently curve these up a little bit while it's still warm. Just make sure they're square, and again, press down near the center, and that'll help. I'm going to run it under the water for a second, and that'll cool it off. So there's that, there's that. Now, I really would like it to just pop back in. I'm going to try. Let me get my gloves so I don't pinch myself, because I can see what's happening next. Tim's going to show up in the next video with another My Little Pony Band-Aid. And as much as I love My Little Pony, yeah, looks like I'm going to have to reheat the tip again. That's okay. I see no shame in that. In this case, I think I can get away with just heating really, really the tip. Or tell you what, we've done that enough. It's time for this to do some work. I know I said I would file the edges of this off, but I'll show you another thing that I like to do. It sort of preps it and makes it easier to file them off. Again, I'm big on avoiding creating PVC dust because I've got enough of that. If I can avoid making it, I'm really happy. Okay. While it's hot, just take your tin snips and you can cut off basically a 45-degree angle on all sides. It doesn't get it as nice as it will if you sand it or if you cut it off, if you grind it or use a file, but it's pretty darn good and it's a good start. So let's just force this back in there where it belongs. Ensure it's back up to the right spot. I think that's great. I'm just going to pinch it on there, make sure it's holding. It's straight. The handle is square, that is the pommel, the flat part of the pommel is square with the blade. Yeah, nice. I'm going to run it under the water real quick. And now this is where you can begin doing some finish work. I mean, the blade is essentially done. So everything that you do from this point on is just to make it look nicer and, well, make it so it doesn't want to fall apart. It actually is on there a little tighter than I expected it to be, but the first thing I'm going to do is I want to apply hot glue on the tops and bottom of the crossguard. Then I'm going to pinch the blade a little bit here and do the same thing, a bead of hot glue along the sides and then along the top as well. I will show you all of that when I'm finished with it. I figure you can figure that part out. Here it is. This is not completely finished since I haven't done the decoration. I'm going to put a scroll design up the blade and I'm going to finish the handle. My idea was to take the black and red leather and sort of weave it along the remainder of the length of the handle. I think it'll look pretty cool. I also think I should probably go over this area with some more hot glue or putty epoxy, some kind, just to smooth it out and make it look a little nicer. And in this version, I left it open. I don't really care. I mean, this is mostly for me messing around with my daughter. And I think you all can figure out how to open a can of epoxy putty and just spread it in there and smooth it down. So I didn't think I felt the need to demonstrate that. But basically, there it is. It feels great. I like the weight. It feels fun in the hand, and we were actually sword fighting with it last night. I am going to paint and decorate it just for the heck of it, and eventually I'm going to give it to my daughter as a present. So, there it is. Still not finished, but I will do an update video when I completely finish decorating it. Sting, the Elven Dagger.